Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. International studies estimate between 10 to 15% of all children have a developmental delay or disability, but most are only identified when they enter formal primary schooling. But by then it's often too late, because when a child isn't school ready, they often fall behind their peers and the trajectory of their academic future is compromised. So can technology help close the early developmental screening and intervention gap? Well, joining us on the show today is Shun Matsuzaka, who is the co-founder of Toy8, which has created a digital early childhood development screening and intervention tool. They've recently partnered with the Territory of Sarawak to conduct developmental screenings in preschools. Shun, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. Can you begin by sharing a little bit about what gap you saw in early childhood developmental support? What did you identify? What was your how does your solution attempt to address it?
Thanks so much for having me. Yes, let me start with my personal story. I have mild dyslexia, and I struggle reading. Just like you said, I didn't know the word dyslexia, but I knew it is really difficult to read as soon as when I enrolled primary school. So since I become a parent in Malaysia, then I realized that there is no developmental support system is provided for all the children. So we came up with the product of digital developmental screening, which we can provide the developmental screening without the specialist presence. Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us a bit about what does your tool do, about the Toy8 tool? How does it screen for developmental conditions in children?
Yes, so we have studied Japanese developmental screening or Western, like UK or US developmental screening. And we worked with Sunway and University Malaya to localize those developmental screening system and turn it into fun game sets. And our developmental screening the kids can spend about 20 minutes to screen children's developmental milestones, including language and speech, cognitive, fine motors, gross motors. All those important developmental milestones can be screened through playing games.
Shun, so you mentioned that this is to allow for screening of many children without a specialist present. Can I ask you, is it meant to replace clinical diagnosis? Is that a dangerous line to tread?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yes, it is definitely not replacing doctor's diagnosis. As I said, the diagnosis needs to be done by the doctors. But in Malaysia and most of the ASEAN countries actually facing the lack of the specialist. And there are very, very long waiting lists. Sometimes starts from humans until the very popular pediatricians, you need to wait like 3 years. So it is way too long, and it is a big loss because 90% of the brain and 40% of the physical develops during 0 to 6 years, which we call golden age. And imagine if you lose this 3 years or even 1 year, is a big loss, and it is very important for everyone to go through developmental screening and at least finding some red flags that we know that this child needs some sort of early intervention so that we can kind of support improving whatever the developmental delay that they are facing.
I see. So this is just a measure before, just as to get an indication of if a child requires intervention and support later on to be diagnosed by a specialist? So talk to me a bit about your collaboration, your program with the Sarawak State Government. How have you been working with them, and what are you seeing so far?
Yes, thank you. So we have started our pilot with Sarawak KPWK because the government is initiating this policy called open door policy with the school network, SEDIDEC. And they are trying to accept as many developmental delay children or children with any support needed. So they pretty much trying to accept it. But they are also facing some of the issues, which is the teacher's skill set are not really trained or capable enough to accept them. So we provide this developmental screening and intervention tools, which is digital and very easy to play, just a game for kids and teachers. And we started last year to provide it. Last year we provided 300 children in total in SEDIDEC and the private schools. And then this year we expanded up to 450. Now they're expanding to 6 different areas of Sarawak.
All right. So what happens after children play this game, and if they are flagged as having developmental delays, what then happens to the child? Who gets notified? How are they provided support and intervention, as you mentioned? Is there capacity to do so with more children hopefully getting diagnosed early, but will they get the support that they need?
Yes. So we screen, and we are expecting about 10 to 15% of the children who need a developmental support after screening. So last year, for example, we have identified about 30 children who need intervention. Yeah, so we have identified about 30 children, and we provided our intervention program, which is also using the same game tool as the screening, and teacher can provide intervention program which is tailor-made for every single children. So for example, this child A has got language speech delay. Because we know the screening score from about over 3,000 game sets, we will pick up the right game sets and provide targeted game. It's called individualized education program. So we can provide and tailor-made individualized education programs for each children, and that will be delivered daily basis, 10 minutes. Teacher can just let kids play, and this 10 minutes intervention program, we ask children and teachers to play for daily basis, and that's the intervention that we can provide.
You can provide intervention through the games, through the technology.
At school, without going to intervention center or doctors. That's the very very good thing and breakthrough of our program.
Do you see this being a bridge to, especially when you talked about how there's a lack of specialists, right, especially developmental pediatricians outside major cities? Do you see this as a way to bridge that gap for more equitable and inclusive interventions to children who need it outside of kind of major city areas?
Definitely, yes. And that is our main purpose. I think the pediatricians' needs is lack of pediatrician is everywhere, but especially for those indigenous communities, it is most likely those children won't have opportunity to see and get proper diagnosis or screening done by the specialist.
Right.
So we would like to spread out to any areas of
Right.
Malaysia or even outside of Malaysia.
Shun, you mentioned earlier in your answers, in the beginning of the conversation, you said that you had worked to localize this game for the Malaysian context. And even within Malaysia, it's not homogenous, right? So if you're talking about maybe more rural or indigenous communities, it's not the same as somewhere in Peninsular Malaysia, rural in Peninsular Malaysia, than in Borneo. Can we talk a little bit about how you worked to localize your game?
Yes, so we have worked with University Malaya and Sunway to get the data from different regions, including East Malaysia and West Malaysia and different states to get the right amount of data to standardize our norm. And yeah, and that will make it our program to be to get national standards.
Okay, so you have worked with people to make sure that it's tailored for a local context. I do have to ask you, I mean, I was talking to some of my friends who have children who are going through developmental interventions, and they raised concerns that, you know, why would a private company be involved in diagnosing developmental delays? Is this innovation stepping in to fill what is essentially public policy failure? And what safeguards do you have to make sure that the sensitive data that you're collecting isn't misused?
True. Yeah, so I think that's why we are also working closely with people like Dr. Amar and also Clinical Research Center to do joint research together to make sure that our research is done by the National Institute or trusted university or other institute to make sure that we don't measure our impact by ourselves, and making sure what we are doing is really, really making the real impact to the society, rather than more going for commercialize and cherry picking for, you know, for our sales sake. And yeah, our commitment from day one is really to make impact, and we want to learn from the real implementation, including Sarawak or any other place. So yeah, that's how we work.
Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about Toy 8 and this digital tool. Appreciate your time. Shun Matsuzaka there, and we're going to take a quick break here on Consider This. We'll be back with more on this topic about early childhood development screening and interventional tools. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our discussion about the need for a coordinated nationwide system for the early detection of developmental delays in children. Joining me now is Dr. Amar Singh, HSS, a consultant pediatrician and child and disability rights activist. He's also an advisor to the National Early Childhood Intervention Council. Amar, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. We just heard from a startup that's trying to fill the gap with a digital screening tool, and I understand that you've been working with them. But before we get into how this might be a solution to bridge the gap, the early intervention gap, could you maybe begin by describing what your observations have been about the state of early childhood screening and support in Malaysia today? Are we diagnosing developmental delays early enough?
Thanks, Melissa. Good to be here with you. And let me take a step back and say how common developmental problems are. Developmental problems are, from good studies, 10 to 15% of all children. In fact, CDC In the US and even WHO quotes 1 in 6 children. And this is talking about 16% of all children have a developmental problem. So it's not a small problem. We are talking here about children with autism, children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and especially the ones that are harder to find, the learning disorders like dyslexia. And of course, the ones that are easier to see, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and the others. So for Malaysia, I think we have a good program in the under 2. That's when a child is born, there's a newborn check. We examine the child. At that time, we pick up most of the significant physical abnormalities and the congenital problems. And then when they come for the immunization program until the age of about 18 months, each time there's a developmental surveillance where we check their milestones while we do their growth and their vaccines. And that picks up quite a number of children. But these are the ones with significant problems, severe problems. I don't like that word very much, but I use it here for this program. So that amounts to probably about 3%. So if we talk about that 10, 15%, we are doing this 3% pickup in that period. And then between 2 and 6, nothing much is happening, and that's our crisis. We've advocated with Ministry of Health that we need developmental screening at this time, but at the present moment, it hasn't really taken place. Mm-hmm. So some children, of course, might see a private pediatrician, but that's a bit of an expensive thing to happen. So if you look at data from MOE, I think that's the most valuable data. MOE quotes for last year that 122,000 children reached school, which is about 24% of all children reaching standard 1 who couldn't read, write, or had other counting problems. So these are 24% of our children reaching standard 1 not school ready. I think I like that word from Australia. They're not school ready. And these are the children we're talking about here, possibly. And after intervention by MOE, about half of them, which means about 12%, still not school ready. So you can see this figure of 12% that MOE has got is quite similar to the one that WHO, CDC, and the one research has done. So we're thinking between 10 to 15% of all children have a development problem, and we are not picking them up, especially the milder and moderate ones. They turn up in school, and they're just not ready for school.
So that would mean if they're not being identified and supported early enough, their entire academic future can be in jeopardy. Can I?
Not just the academic future. You're talking about employment. You're talking about long-term independent living, many other things as well.
So this, the tool that we discussed earlier, using tech to identify early enough some of these early childhood developmental delays. How concerned are you as a pediatrician this might replace clinical diagnosis? Not replace, but could there be complexity in identifying some of these developmental conditions that even trained specialists may need nuance to identify? Can technology efficiently identify, screen for developmental issues?
Well, Melisa, I think of technology as a tool to support, not to replace. So I don't think it's going to replace the role of a general pediatrician, developmental pediatrician, but we need to recognize that right now the waiting time is enormous. If you want to see a developmental pediatrician in Malaysia, the waiting time sometimes can be up to 2 years. Usually it's 1 year plus. By that time, I think it's almost no value because a child with developmental problem needs to be seen now. So even for a general pediatrician, I think the waiting time is 3 to 6 months. So one good thing about the tool is it identifies there is a problem, gets you started with the intervention program, and then you can aim for the assessment with a pediatrician or a speech therapist or development person down the road. So I don't think it's aimed at replacing. Second thing I would like to say is that I think that there's probably going to be an underdiagnosis rather than overdiagnosis, even with this tool, because the really mild children are going to be very hard to pick up. I think usually most doctors actually dismiss them and say nothing's wrong with your child. The tool probably is slightly better at picking them up, but still there is going to be a little bit of underdiagnosis. I think many people are worried, is this tool going to overdiagnose? I think that's not really a concern here. I must say also here that about 1 in 3 children right now in Malaysia have got expressive speech problems. That means they don't speak on par with their peers. And part of this is not the fact that they're a developmental problem, but we have a screen explosion in young children's lives, and that's affected them. So one good thing about the tool is saying, hey, your child's speech is not up to par. Let's boost it, So I think that's good. Picking up a child early is going to help. I think it's not going to replace pediatricians or doctors.
Right. So once there has been kind of early screening, and then that hopefully leads to a diagnosis. What then would you like to see, Amar, in terms of interventions? What would an ideal system look like where children are supported from the earlier sign of developmental delay?
So let's say we don't have this program. The ideal system is that we have a screening program, first of all, accessible to all children in Malaysia, irregardless whether they're Malaysian or not, and that's free, government funded, of course. Secondly, it's something that can be done very simply and has to be done by teachers, because there's no way this volume of children can come to the health service. It's just too huge. So teachers, the preschool teachers are the best person. So they need to apply this tool. Thirdly, you can't apply the tool once only. You need to do it at age 3, 4, and 5, because some development problems like dyslexia take time to appear. And so you need to do multiple times. So then, okay, we have identified this child. What we want to do next in the ideal, real Finland kind of situation is keep the child in mainstream. And to do that, we then need to bring an early intervention practitioner to this classroom to support the teacher and the child, to help the teacher understand the child's needs, work with them, like a shadow aid kind of thing. Then, of course, you might need some support when you're in school, when you're in university, and then you need an inclusive employer, and probably what we're really looking for in Malaysia is an inclusive society where all of us are accepted. So I think that's a really ideal situation. I think Finland does it well because they call it something called universal design for learning, where every child is accepted and taught according to how they learn, not how we teach them. That's a very powerful concept there. In Finland, for example, 98% of all children are in mainstream, and that's our target right now with the screening tool.
Right.
So I think this is a very difficult ideal to achieve, because where are you going to find all those early childhood intervention practitioners? Already right now, we are choked. Our intervention centers, even in the NSIC, have all got waiting lists. Many parents know that. So we need to, have a method of stratifying children. Perhaps this screening tool and the intervention can then support children who have mild, moderate problems, and the most severe ones then go to the early intervention practitioners who can do more hands-on work. And because with this tool, we are benchmarking children frequently. The children without a problem are being seen every year. The children with a problem are being seen every 3 months, assessed every 3 months. So we will know if the intervention is not working. We could then fast-track the ones who are having difficulty on to receive therapy or see a professional.
Amar, for those who are still skeptical of this new digital tool, and often any new innovation comes with their own host of skeptics, do you think there could be any unintended consequences, any danger of governments outsourcing this maybe to a private tech company? How do you view this innovation? Is this something we should embrace with open arms, or are there red flags that you would pay attention to?
I think that, I think we should embrace it. This is not the only company trying this. I'm also involved with a company called Angsana Health, which is a Malaysian startup company, where what they're doing is using video recordings to try and identify children with autism, where parents upload selected videos and then they have a professional see them. So I think different people are trying different models. Again, the reason we're doing this is the backlog. We don't have enough people doing the screening, waiting time is too long, and we don't have people doing the therapy. So I think to people who are skeptics, I would say, hey, give us a solution. We're happy to take any solution that works. We're not people who are heavily dependent on tech or AI. We don't think that's the ultimate solution. But this is a very exciting tool because it's fun-based. Both the screening and the intervention tool are fun-based, and children enjoy doing it. I think that's a good part.
Yeah. Amar, thank you so much for speaking with me. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Dr. Amar Singh, HSS there, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.